All right, people, we have one last founding document to talk about, and that is the Bill of Rights. We should have in front of us the Bill of Rights student handout packet, and on that first page, you are going to take notes from this video. This video is going to be a little bit of a review and also a little bit of clarification about what led to this argument about why we should have a Bill of Rights. Should we have one? Should states just have one, or should we have a national one? So let's get started. So first we need to define rights. Rights were defined as and are expressions of individual liberty. We talked about earlier this year the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that were established among the colonists in the Declaration of Independence. There's this document called Our Rights, and they say the colonial contribution of modern ideas about rights was significant, not as much as a list of rights, but as a set of attitudes about individual liberty. So this kind of gives us this pretense in that this was a general mindset and goal that was held by the colonists. So there were a couple of rights that the colonists brought with them to this country. And they are, first, the protection of property, and for individuals accused of crimes. This is like the two main focus areas that the rights pertain to. They had the freedom to petition the government. They had, I'll talk about that next point in a second. They had the freedom of assembly, and also prohibitions against cruel and unusual punishment. This third bullet point about the freedom to petition the government, this comes from the English Bill of Rights that was written in 1689. And so a lot of the provisions in these specific rights that the colonists brought with them came from this document. It also included taxation without representation. So having considered themselves British subjects, Americans claimed all of the rights of freeborn Englishmen. So the first state constitutions limited government from performing arbitrary acts that would deprive people of their freedom of speech, freedom of religion, right to bear arms, right to assemble peacefully, and to petition. James Madison, he thought that the greatest danger to individual liberties came from the states. So where did they come up with these ideas for rights? And where did they, how did they come up with that these rights should belong to everybody and should be protected by the state government? So first, a lot of what the English settlers brought to the New World considered to be rights was found in the common law, which was the case law of English courts. It wasn't in statutes or state documents. Common law contained what had become customary practice in English society. So the Magna Carta emphasized rights of the accused, promised a speedy and public trial by jury, and a couple of other things that we're going to watch this video in a moment that will explain it. English history is also the foundation for all of these rights, hence the English Bill of Rights I referenced before and the Magna Carta. So let's take a look at this video. Okay, next, just a super quick review about why the reasons that, Alright, so here's a quick review about why we were asking for independence from Great Britain, pertaining specifically to this topic of the Bill of Rights. So the local autonomy was threatened within the colonies. They valued self-government. They were being taxed without representation, and this interfered with everyone's right to property. There were violations to the right to have a public jury. Local courts were suspended, and they couldn't continue with their proceedings. So, pause the video, make sure we have all of these. Okay, so what the significance of writing the rights into laws is that these new state constitutions and later the Federal Bill of Rights contained more expansive safeguards of liberty than had been listed in colonial protests. The founding generation also put these rights in writing and gave them the force of fundamental law. protections that cannot be changed easily. So it makes it a legal requirement to protect these specific rights, and it makes it harder to violate the rights once they are explicitly stated in law. In the law. So we have limitations that the Constitution put in place on the government's power in regards to these rights. So first, they based all power or sovereignty is the right to rule, in the people and not the government. And government had only the authority granted to it in a written constitution that was ratified by the people. So to restrain government even more, the framers divided power in two fundamental ways. So one way was that we have the three branches of government. Second, we have the state government separate from the federal government. Next, federalism. So this is the fact that federalism is the same as the idea that we have this separation of power, and it entrusted the central government, the one that everybody feared the most, with only the power necessary to serve truly national functions, such as defense and regulation of commerce between the states. The powers not granted to the central government, including the critical authority to define and prosecute crimes, would remain with the states, which by definition were the people. So the delegates believed that these restrictions on government, popular sovereignty, a written constitution, separation and balance of powers, and federalism would be sufficient protection for the rights of individuals. So there was no Bill of Rights in the Constitution, as we've established, but they didn't think it needed one. Its advocates reasoned since the new government could not exercise any power not granted to it explicitly. So the rights that the Constitution did include was, one, habeas corpus, which is in Latin, meaning you may have the body. And this is to keep suspects from lingering indefinitely in prison. Habeas corpus literally commands a jailer to produce the person jailed. This means that the prisoner has the right to challenge any wrongful imprisonment. It also, within the Constitution, gives everyone the right to a speedy trial, forbids making something a crime after an action has been committed, and bans religious requirements for candidates for public office. So this concludes our historical background and context about the Bill of Rights. Make sure you have all of these questions answered on your note page. If not, you can rewind. What we're going to do next is we're going to watch a video as a whole class about the struggle to create the Bill of Rights.